Alrighty then. So I guess we're still gonna wait for. I guess people have. Oh, we actually have two people watching. Oh, that's cool. Somebody came in. Hello. Yeah, we're gonna wait a few minutes at least to let some more people come in. Hey, intense. How you doing, man? I'm glad you're here. Yeah. So we're just, and then apparently, according to the counter, they left again. Hey, Bat Goat. As always, of course, guys, I welcome to 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. New time for the mic stand. Um, doing well. That's good. So even though the counter says two, I think it looks more like we have three. So oh, pretty good there then. As always, guys, I do appreciate any and all likes and shares. If you can help out with that, see if we can get some more people in here, that'd be appreciated. Yeah, so we're gonna wait a few more minutes, see if we can get some more people in here before we get started. Um, I do have a pretty packed show planned for tonight, so um, oh yeah. So, anyways, how are you guys doing? How'd your weekend go? Hopefully everything went well for you guys. Yeah. Hmm. La di di da di da, la di di da di da, la di di da di da, la di di da di da. All right. Weekend was good. Yeah, I do know that Pops was doing his CromCon over the weekend, so and I came in on some of those. Ton on work, and I work for myself. Oh yeah, I feel that sometimes more when I do my broadcast. Especially when you feel a little pressed for time and you're trying to get everything ready and stuff like that. I know how that can be. Hmm. Yeah, as I said, we're just waiting a few more minutes to let some more people, you know, um, as always, of course, as I said, I do appreciate any and all likes and shares. Helps get more people in here, get more eyes watching. So, um, I'm retired and sick of all this overtime. or yeah. Ah. Yep. Hmm. Okay. And then interwebs here. Let's see what you were saying. Yeah, I split ways with Pops. He kept asking for more and more, and we were sending him ADA and 1,125 NFTs too. Nope, I'm done with. Okay. All right. Well, anyways. Um. All right. As I said, we're just waiting for a few more minutes to. Yeah. Um. I know RJ right now is finishing up his stream where he's talking to Chris Wagnard and talking about his comics tights. I guess they're coming close to hitting some goals on their Indiegogo there. Um, we did all the work, lots of time, and spent the real money, ADA crypto money. Uh, Again, not as familiar with that side of it. I'm basically getting to know Pops through RJ. So, um, oh, sorry though you had a bad experience with him, but I guess sometimes that happens. Hmm. Let's see, we're coming up on 6 minutes here, so maybe a couple more minutes, and I'll at least tell everybody what's going to be coming up here. Um, yeah, yeah, so laugh out loud. It's okay. It's over now. Okay. Yeah, again, I'm just more, I'm just a fan like everybody else, just getting into this stuff and doing where, pointing to my strengths, just like sharing the knowledge and making those connections. So I hope that one. Woody, hey Woody, back in a couple minutes then. Well, yeah, Woody. I mean, I'm just waiting to give people a chance to get in here. So, rather than start, but you know that about me. You know that that's what I do. If there were like 5 people in here, at the beginning, I'd probably be starting more like right away. Gotcha. I'm watching to learn too. Morning Wood. So now we got three. Well, we got 3 of us in here now. Four. I guess actually technically 4, with myself being included there. Um. So even though the counter keeps saying 1 or 2, but um. Okay, so we're at 7. So I'll probably start, giving a little preview in terms of saying what I'll be talking about here, and a little under 20. Now it's like going to be about 15 seconds before I'll probably get into like what's on tap for tonight. So we're just and got a little pocket of people here. All right, we're at the 8 minute mark now. So, all right, so here's what's on tap for tonight. I got 6 stories to go over. All 6 comics related. One from Critical Blast, and the other 5 from Bounding into Comics. Gonna go over an article that RJ did, um, Indie Comics Under the Surface, in which he talks about I believe his interview last week with Chris and Diane Tomolovich on his release of his Cluster Fudge book, his second issue of his Cluster Fudge feature. Also, James Tynion the Fourth is retconning Bane's origin over at DC. There's a Charles Schultz illustration from back in 1947, apparently, that predicted what's going on today. We'll be looking at that. Jonathan Pagot, I guess, he's an iconographer. He's going to be he apparently reached a Indiegogo goal or Kickstarter goal, I believe. And then Image Comics, there are some of the guys there who are forming a union to try to gain creative control. And then Marvel Comics, once again, showing its hypocrisy. So that's all that's on tap for tonight. We're at like 9. So probably when we hit the 10-minute mark, we'll get going with the stories. So 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. It's time to get started with the stories. And I hope you guys will enjoy the content tonight. We get into these news articles, see what's going on in the world of niche, and of course, as always, at the end of the, towards the end. No, wait, one last thing before starting. One last, what is it, Back Goat? One last thing before starting. What's up, Back Goat? I could be messing with you. Oh boy. Alrighty. Anyways. Well, so let's go ahead and get started with the articles then. And I hope let's see what you guys will have to say as we converse about them as well as we go over them. All right, so here we go. Indie comics under the radar. Cluster Fudge from Hero Shack. Let's see what RJ has to say about this. This was, of course, submitted by RJ this past Friday at 9:50 in the morning. And that Cluster Fudge too. So this is the second issue of this particular title from Chris and Diane Tomolovich. Mature readers only. So, all right. So let's take a look at this then. Independent comic publishers have been with us for as long as the comic industry has been around. If you had a photocopier and a stapler, you could do your own thing and try to convince people to buy it. And some did so quite successfully. Yes, particularly throughout the time of Comics Code Authority when they were really censoring a lot of the mainstream comics. You'd get a lot more of the independent comics that would get sold more through like smoke shops and stuff like that. So, anyways, now with the advent of technologies like print on demand, not to mention the affordability of your average print shop, and the mass marketing tools afforded by way of crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, truly anyone can try their hand at getting into the funny book business. Now, as many of you who have been on who have watched my the historical comic retrospect know, comics did not start out as comic books; they started out as comic magazines. Many of which in the early days were kind of akin to what many of us knew as highlights growing up. So, let's see. They have show like in an hour and 15 minutes, I think. Idaho, Idaho. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Did hear something about like yeah. I heard that Chris and Diane are going to be on D&V Investigations Intense Webs. I did hear about that. Idaho. Okay. Let's see. See what you have to say here, Becca. Idaho Comics in Santa Monica, the place where I bought my um, Freak Brothers and Zap and other underground comics when I was a kid. Yeah, underground comics. That was another. That was another. Like independent comic shop there. Chris T and yeah, I know what you were talking about. Intense Webs, Chris and Diane. So I knew you. I knew what you were talking about pretty much right from jump. So, anyways, continuing on with the article here. Let's see. Okay. The downside of that is that there are so many competing projects out there for your dollar that it's easy to go unnoticed if you don't raise your voice loud enough. Which, of course, RJ has been helping out with a lot of these guys by, having them come on his show for the interviews during the week. You guys, should go check out, wouldn't that be an interesting lineup right there? You go over to RJ's at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern. You go to Critical Blast to catch the interviews, and then you come to my channel to get more niche news, not just comics but also anime, cartoons, manga, some pro wrestling. So, what a lineup, huh? What a primetime lineup. Critical Blast at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, followed by the Mikestand at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And that's 7 and 8 o'clock Central Time, respectively, as well. So, I hope you guys will make the time for those for both of our shows. One of these many titles flying below the radar is the oddly provocatively named Cluster Fudge. Now, granted, my guess is that the reason they call it Cluster Fudge is because it's kind of a tongue in cheek to a very similar sounding word. If something that ends not with a soft G but a hard K sound, if you get what I mean. Anyways, that's just my impression, but a mature reader series about a retired superhero named Cluster, who, because of his unique powers, cannot be killed. His long life and the things he's seen in it have stripped from him any sense of optimism and hope, and left him a bitter, cynical, and not very nice old man in a not very nice world. Yeah, I think that would probably wear on anybody's mind, And there are other entertainment, other TV show. There's TV shows, comics, other mediums out there that have immortal characters. I'm right now. One of the things I'm watching on Sunday nights, on my own is the '90s Highlander series with Adrian Paul, and you kind of see that too there. There's always some good and some bad. So nicely done, Mike. Cluster brittle. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways. All right. Husband and wife creators, Chris and Diana Tomolovich, proprietors of Hero Shack Press, work hand in hand as creative and editorial on not only Cluster Fudge, but also The Great Cyclopean, two distinctly different types of books set within the same universe of heroes. Yeah, this sounds like it's going to be a very interesting universe to check out if you guys have a chance to do so. Cluster Fudge satirizes and skewers tropes from the Marvel universe with characters like the Silver Scribe, while the Great Cyclopean has a decidedly more DC feel to it. So basically, these are Cluster Fudge and Great Cyclopean sound like parody titles when they're parodying Marvel and DC. That sounds pretty, and they rightfully so deserve to be parodied. Rightfully so. Safe Space, Snowflake, Internet Gas. Cluster Fudge is filled with irreverent, Tarantino-esque violence and black humor that makes it something of a guilty pleasure to read. Having finally tired of his long life, Cluster sets out to find death. Not to find death. not death. But the big guy himself with a capital D. I think like DC Marvel comic or DC Comics death is I guess who they're talking about. So that he can finally exit this merry-go-round of horrors his existence has become. You can find the second issue of Cluster Fudge right now on Indiegogo, and be sure to check out our interview with Chris and Diana below. And I watched a good portion of that video. Chris and Diana are a couple of cool people. They should really check their stuff out. Check out their channel as well. They have Chris has a channel you guys can go to and see. Marvel does a good job of parodying themselves. Yeah, I would say that's a good observation there, Batgoat. That's a pretty good observation there. Ah. Mm-hmm. Anyways, we're now 21 minutes into the show here. And now it's time to move on to the next article as we head over here to and it looks and the only reason I didn't ask if you guys had anything more to say on it because you guys are already saying, or at least Batgoat saying quite a bit on that first article. So now we're gonna move on to the next article here. See what you guys might be saying in the interim here. All right, so let me see now. Yeah, I just hope that like Toys and Leto all remembered that we moved up an hour. So, anyways, we got a really big show tonight. Ed Sullivan. Yeah. Actually, yeah, actually you can catch some of those old episodes of the Ed Sullivan show on Decades now as well. In fact, Decades also just started showing some classic cartoons in the 70s, a couple of DePatie Frailing Enterprise properties, Hound Cats and Barclays. So check those out on Saturday morning. If you have cable, that is. Anyways, moving along now to the next article here. James Tynion the Fourth retcons Bane with vengeance. Origin reveal. Okay, article by J.B. Augustine, published this past Friday. Bane's daughter, codenamed Vengeance, has finally gotten the gaps in her origin story filled in courtesy of the latest issue of James Tynion IV's The Joker. And that's Vengeance right there, I guess. Source The Joker 2, art by Guillermo March. In Joker number 8, Tynion the Fourth reveals that everything about the young supervillain, how she came to be, what her origin really has to do with her supposed dad, and why she wants to kill the jester of genocide, is the design of the lab and institution in Santa Prisca, who created her and sent her after Mr. J, as Harley Quinn likes to call him. The Epiphany has drawn some comparisons to Wolverine and X-23. X-23, who was, I believe, a character that was introduced in the early 2000 series X-Men Evolution, and I don't know if she was comics first or was in the in the anime show first and then introduced in the comics. Anyways, but as well as to the relationship between Batman and his biological son Damian. Now, can you imagine that matchup? Batman and Bruce and Damian Wayne, Batman and Robin versus Bane and Vengeance. You got back there, you got like Bruce, you got two Robins, maybe Tim and Tim Drake and Damian Wayne, and then Red Hood back there, aka Jason Todd and Batgirl. According to Tiny on the Fourth, Vengeance created using genetic material taken from Bane and grown at an accelerated rate. In other words, she's a clone, a female clone, mind you. And just as the military junta that runs Santa Prisca um, can genetically engineer soldiers, they can also program them, which is why she and Bane hate and hunt Joker and the Bat. It was implanted in them. So she hunts the Joker because they planted it in her, and then Bane hunts the Bat because it was planted into him. With Vengeance, DC and Joker writer James Tynion can do what they want. She's a new character. Um, do what they want but in creating her, they've admittedly married Bane's origin a little bit. Or they've admittedly marred um, Bane's origin a little bit. No longer is Bane simply a master criminal and cunningly resourceful super soldier who can get the best of any opponent with enough time and planning. Now he is a controlled product who possesses no free will. He did everything to break that programming, though it cost him his life during the Joker War, and his curse subsequently passed to his offspring. She was programmed just as Bane was, her whole life written on her mind, but with her mission being to track down and slay Joker. Joker number 2, art by Guillermo March right here. So he has some artwork from that. See if anybody else is coming. Petty Frailing of Pink Panther fame, correct? Yep, that's right, Batcoat. Same company. The Petty Frailing did Pink Panther. They did Inspector, Roland Ratfink, The Ants and the Aardvark, The Houndcats, and Barclays. Only a matter of time before they turned Bane and Joker by. Yeah, you're probably right, Woody. Knowing the way DC's going these days. And we'll be lucky that in a few years it will just be all this garbage we're going through right now will just be considered another part of the multiverse. It'll be like Earth woke. Earth woke. When she discovers her true history thanks to a secret file containing all the intel, Vengeance turns rogue from her mission to weigh her options. Her resulting course of action leads her to Europe, where she has currently kidnapped Jim Gordon in an attempt to sway him to let her kill the clown, arguing that she would even be doing it for his sake so that she could complete her mission and salvage some form of independent volition. Here's the Joker number 4 right here. You got Vengeance right there. You got Barbara Gordon, James Gordon. Very nice. Some of the other ones there. What Gordon will do when he ultimately confronts the arch villain after his investigation, given their tumultuous history, is unclear. Now, for those of you who don't know what they're talking about here, so it goes back to the whole, I think, death in the family storyline. As I think it was part of that storyline in which Jason Todd was initially killed. Joker also, to try to prove to everybody that everybody has at least one bad day in their lives, went and basically shot and paralyzed Barbara Gordon right in front of Commissioner Gordon's eyes. Like, basically shot and paralyzed his daughter right in front of his eyes. Let's see. However, it is possible he might let Vengeance do her thing and absolve himself. Also up in the air is how she will deal with it or evolve as a character when the deed is done. More than that, she has Daddy to worry about now that he's been brought back to life as one of the undead members of the newly formed Task Force Z. Oh, they're doing that again, huh? I know they did that with the Black Lantern arc. Joker number 8, art by Guillermo March. Brought to life by the team of James Tynion IV, Guillen March, Arif Prianto, and Tom Napolitano. The Joker number 8 is now on sale. What do you make of Vengeance's origin and Bane's new retcon? Let us know your thoughts on social media or the comments down below. I don't know if anybody's got anything to say about the retcon or not. I don't know if any of us have actually read the Earth Woke. Yeah. Remember, there's a bunch of different Earths in the DC multiverse backcoat. That's why I said it like that. As always, guys, of course, I do appreciate any and all likes and shares. If you haven't had a chance to like and share the stream yet, I'd be appreciated if you could do so. So with that, let's see. Let's get ready to move on to the next story then here. Actually, before I do so, I do have to step away for a quick moment. I'll be right back. Just got to step. I'll be right back, guys. All right. All right, I'm back. It's getting cold here in Minnesota. 40-degree days, no snow yet. Yeah, well, I mean, we're at November 1st, back goat. So what do you expect? um, it's been cooling down a bit here in California too. Not as much though, um, but yeah. So yeah, I guess the cold might be preventing you from getting out and disc golfing, huh? A little bit. All right. So, anyways, let's get on to the next story here. This is gonna be a bit of an interesting story. Charles Schultz, illustrated comic book from 1947, predicted the current disastrous state of modern day America. So, just in case for those of you who don't know, Charles Schultz is the guy who was probably his most famous work was, of course, the Peanuts series with Snoopy and Charlie Brown and all that. Um, Article written by John F. Trent, published this past Friday. So let's take a look at this then. A Charles Schultz illustrated comic book called Is This Tomorrow? That was published by um, get, uh, the Catechetical Guild Educational Society in 1947 and predicted the current disastrous state of American politics and its moral fiber. So I'm guessing, in plain English, the Catechetical Guild Educational Society is basically, I think, like a Catholic education society, basically a Catholic education group. While Schultz provided illustrations, the book was written by F. Robert Edmond and Francis McGrade. America under Communism. The book declares right from the get go that it was published with one purpose, and that purpose is, quote unquote, to make you think, to make you more alert to the menace of communism, unquote. From there, it showcases a story of how communism will take over and destroy the United States of America. It begins with a drought, a plague of grasshoppers, and dust storms. All of these were found in the Bible as well. The crisis sees the United States of America facing starvation. It kind of actually, if that's the case, we are heading in that direction. It would seem, especially with what the talk of about the supply chains and stuff. With the United States of America facing starvation, a communist by the name by by the well, I think it should say name, but it says man here, by the name of Jones, who is funded by the Kremlin, outlines his plan to transform America into a communist country within a year. His plan is to create a crisis and then hold the resources people will want and need in order to survive the crisis. In this case, that resource is food. Kind of does sound a little bit familiar. Maybe not in the execution, mind you, but it does sound similar to what's going on, like, with the whole how they're handling the whole coronavirus and stuff like that. While Jones outlines two simple steps, a man named Brown, who is their head of propaganda, explains how they have created a front organization already gained a number of notable supporters, including a sitting U.S. senator and a number of prominent left wing speakers. Brown says, quote, as you know, a few of our boys starts a front to oppose fascism or intolerance or something else that is unpopular. They get a few big names to back them, unquote. This tomorrow. From there, the head of propaganda uses editors and writers that they've trained for years to push their messaging on radio and in the written word. Sound familiar? Sound familiar, guys? Actually does sound a lot like what's going on right now, doesn't it? Uh, let's see. Some years we are under 2 feet of snow by Halloween hits. By the time Halloween hits, we're scheduled for a high of 47 tomorrow here in northern Arkansas. Yeah, well, here where I'm at in Southern California, I think we're gonna actually start going back up in the next few days. We're gonna be in 75 degrees. You know, tomorrow, and then will actually hit 82 sometime over the weekend. I know you guys probably don't want to hear that where you guys are at, but yeah, so getting chilly. And the counter's going screwy again, of course. With all the lies in the media, I'm beginning to question things I've read about what was going on in Germany in the 30s. I remember if it drops below 60, they close the schools. If it drops below 60 degrees in Minnesota, they close the schools. The people that report things apparently have little regard for the truth. Yep. Right now, it's all about pushing agendas and trying to turn America away from what it was founded on. The censorship eventually comes down hard that any paper criticizing the regime will be unable to print unless they change their policy. Sound familiar, guys? Any of this sound familiar from this article? And it didn't take long for the papers to accept the message. The comic states, quote, Brown took over control of the news. Press associations got their orders quickly, unquote. It even shows Brown telling what looked like a group of editors, quote, you guys aren't going to do any more guessing about politics. From now on, you send out the news the government gives you. See? And here you go right here. Their plan also involves um, getting up racial and religious tensions on top of class tensions. Sound familiar? uh, in fact, the comic notes these tensions will be spearheaded by their people in Hollywood. A lot of this is sounding so familiar. This is like right. This is pretty much spot on what is actually going on right now. Granted, the execution is probably different from the way they were interpreting it back then, but they didn't think that in like 60, 70 years, we might have computers and and like the internet, social media, and all that. But a lot of this is pretty much what is exactly happening here. Uh, it states, quote, class conflict and the breakdown of bourgeois morals have been handled very well by our people in Hollywood, unquote. Um, Hollywood is also key in eroding the sacredness of life. The comic states, quote, people are giving up their silly ideas about the sacredness of life. Um, what I believe they're talking about there are things like abortion and euthanasia. That might be their way of talking about abortion and euthanasia back there in 1947. Again, not that we're trying to get too much into politics here, but this is all some pretty interesting stuff. So people that report things apparently. Oh, okay, we already did see that. I remember trick or treating in the snow in Colorado a few times back then. On a good Halloween, you could fill up 2 or 3 full size grocery bags. In LA, I'm joking again. Oh, okay. Uh, heck yeah to bourgeois morals. Those are the ones with the string attached to the quasi that you can pull anytime. Same here. I'm from Wyoming originally. Okay, so as we continue on here, let's see. We already got through all that. The racial and religious tensions first ginned up by Hollywood are intensified. At one point, a woman falsely accused a black man of insulting her. Chaos ensues and a riot breaks out in the city. This all sounds so familiar to what's going on today. One of the more interesting parts of the comics is that it details how the communists take over labor unions, specifically making changes in the dead of night, which I have actually heard some of that stuff going on, believe it or not. The comic explains, quote, for instance, we drag out meetings until all but the party members go home. Then we elect our own officers and pass the measures we want, unquote. Once they infiltrated and taken over the political class, they used the armed forces and police to begin arresting and imprisoning any dissidents, even judges. Their crimes plotting against the state, quote unquote, says one military officer. Kind of funny. They were accusing Donald Trump. They were accusing that Donald Trump was going to do this, and he didn't do it. President Trump was going to do this. But yeah. They're not doing it though with military. They're doing it with like bureaucrats. In an all too similar comparison to the much talked about vaccine passports, The comic sees the communists implement ration cards so that only those deemed worthy by the state can receive them. If you don't have one of these cards, you don't get any food. On top of this, it also shows how some businesses are pawns in the game, as a store owner says, quote, "I'm sorry, Mr. Green, if I gave food to you, they would take my own card away," unquote. You know what you do then? You pick, well, you guys know how I feel. I think most of you know how I feel about what you should do if they start pulling that garbage. You know, at that point, it really is time to go 1776 on their hides. So, the crazy girls. Laugh out loud, laugh out loud. I'm from LA originally and moved to the Midwest. I've lived in Houston for the last 30 plus years. Outside of Hennepin County, Minnesota is all right. And then sacrifice ourselves. And maybe the biggest prediction the comic makes is how they infiltrate the schools. The book reads, quote, "New professors taught communism in schools, even in the grade schools," unquote. One teacher even tells her students, quote, "Remember, you are supposed to obey the state, not your parents," unquote. Sounds a lot like former Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe when he said in a recent debate with Glenn Youngkin, quote, "I'm not going to let parents come into schools and actually take books out and make their own decisions," unquote. McAuliffe added, quote, "I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach," unquote. Wrong, Mr. McAuliffe. Categorically and undeniably wrong. And by the way, for those of you who happen to be in Virginia and New Jersey, you do have elections coming up. Well, also in Ohio, you've got a couple of Senate elections coming up, and a couple of the, or not Senate, but House, um, House elections coming up. So special elections. So as the comic ends, it states that those are tomorrow, by the way. As the comic ends, it states, quote, "Where do you come in? You are the one with whom the communist is struggling right now. His aim is to make you hate your fellow man and keep you blind to the important things in life. He wants to make you forget the importance of your right to vote as you please, to say what you please, to go where you please, to worship as you please. The communist really wants you to forget all your rights to individual freedom and liberty," unquote. It continues, quote, "But you cannot assume your individual rights without assuming individual responsibility. If you want to keep on living in freedom, you must know who the communists are and their methods of working. You must recognize the communist part line in action and separate communist propaganda from the factual news of the day," unquote. Quote, "You are on the defensive in this battle. You owe it to yourself to know all about the invader. He knows more about you than you suspect, unquote. The book concludes. Finally, the book lists out the 10 Commandments of Citizenship to be used to fight communism. Know your government. Know the issues before it. Keep up on foreign problems. Be tolerant of other races, religions, and nationalities. Practice your own religion. Read newspapers and magazines critically. Use your vote. Follow closely the actions of your elected representatives. Join political organizations. Be American first. What do you make of how similar Is This Tomorrow is to the current state of I think it's spot on. I think Charles Schultz back in 1947 was a prophet. He was most definitely a prophet. Granted, again, they probably, again, there's going to be some slight differences in terms of some aspects of the execution because of advancing technologies that we have, because of the technological differences that were available or even able to be thought of back in 47 to now. But Charles Schultz was definitely a prophet in that. So, anyways, let's see how we're doing here with everybody. Coming up on 58 minutes. I might have, that's just two. Let's see, I've just gone through two of the articles, so I guess I got to start speeding up a little bit because we're already at 58 minutes and it took me that long to get through just those two articles. Actually, well, no, wait. Actually, two or three. Actually, no. Actually, it's just three because that's right because I did RJ's article too. So we're actually halfway through. Already. McAuliffe sounds like a commie jerk. Yeah, they nailed it. Yep. I totally agree, Batgoat. I totally agree. All right. So anyways, moving on a bit here. Now move on to the next story here. "1947, you say? Catholics saying, quote, be tolerant of other races, religions, and nationalities, unquote. The white man being oppressive throughout history sounds a little suspect to me, methinks. Iconographer Jonathan Pageau blasts past fundraising goal for his graphic novel God's Dog. Article by John F. Trent published earlier today. Let's take a look at this one now. Iconographer and YouTuber Jonathan Pageau blasted past his original fundraising goal for his graphic novel God's Dog in less than 48 hours. God's Dog as opposed to Hell's Hound. Pageau launched an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign for God's Dog with an original goal of $30,000 on October 31st, which was Sunday. It was actually yesterday. Less than 48 hours later, the campaign has already hit 52,032 and Whoa! They're on pace to double it probably by only within a few hours here. Maybe by tomorrow morning, he'll have doubled what his original goal was. The book is written by Jonathan and Matthew Pagot, with illustrations by Cord Nielsen. A press release details God's dog is the first in, quote, an upcoming series of graphic novels retelling the legendary story of the dog-headed Saint Christopher. It's a surprising tale of transformation woven into a mythological version of the biblical cosmos, where angels, giants, dragons, as well as warrior saints and mysterious monks deal with the consequences of the world's very first relic, unquote. It adds, quote, the story dives into ancient Christian and Jewish traditions surrounding the Genesis accounts, treating them as world building and mythical backdrops as a panoply of saints like our main character, Saint Christopher, but also Saint George, Saint Mercurius, Saint Simeon, Saint Simeon Stylite, and even biblical characters such as Adam, Eve, Cain, Nimrod, Elijah, finally also alluding to historical characters from Alexander to Nero. Quote, within the epic scope of a cosmic battle over humanity's first relic, the main thrust surrounds Saint Christopher, the mysterious dog-headed saint whose Pinocchio story of becoming human will tug at your heartstrings, awaken your sense of wonder, and whose story also acts as a thoughtful commentary to our current cosmic situation of being lost in the margins, unquote, asserts the press release. Dog-headed saint, that sounds kind of interesting to see. Saint Christopher, the dog-headed saint. What I'm saying is good people having good people for a long time, SJWs, are liars and they alter history. Yeah, I agree with you, Backo. I agree with you. Totally. In a promotional video for the graphic novel, Pagot provides more details. He says, quote, God's Dog is a very loose and epic exploration of the legend of the dog-headed warrior Christopher, one of the most surprising and peculiar traditions in the ancient medieval world, unquote. Yeah, it sounds like a couple of animes I know where they basically, well, it sounds like a few animes I know that where they've done a lot of loose canon changing. Le Chevalier d'Eon, Peacemaker Kurogane, Shura no Toki, you know, Intrigue in the Bakumatsu, Hakuoki. A lot of these, you know, I've done a lot of this stuff with historical canon. Okay, moving on to Pagot then detailed the series of graphic novels was originally written as a screenplay by him and his brother over a decade ago. While he notes that some folks in Hollywood did show interest in the script, he notes, quote, this story was, of course, too big, too strange, too surprising for Hollywood, unquote. It actually sounds like it would. I think it would have work. It could work better as an animated series, quite honestly, a cartoon. He concludes, quote, "This story is set in Tolkien-style mythical version of the biblical world, filled with hidden codes, ancient relics, angels, giants, dragons, and populated with fictional versions of mysterious monks, warrior saints, and more symbolism than you can imagine," unquote. Quote, "God's dog contains all of the intensity and subtly of our symbolic thinking, the world class layouts and artwork of Cord Nelson. All of this bound in a mysterious and powerful story arc, which is available to all from wide-eyed 10-year-olds to the most seasoned readers." He goes on to detail, unquote. He goes on to detail that the crowdfunding campaign will also include the Secrets of God's Dog book, a source book. Pagot explains this book is, quote, "a beautiful volume in which you will find my original drawings from more than 10 years ago, an exploration of the symbolism of St. Christopher, and an exclusive text by Matthew Pagot on the symbolism of the biblical Samson," unquote. Samson was a legendary strongman who got his power basically from his hair. That if he, basically, if you all remember, once he was seduced by Delilah and she ended up cutting off his hair, he was severely weakened. The first graphic novel, God's Dog, will be 115 pages in length. With a hardcover binding, there is an option to just get a digital copy. The campaign also has a number of other different options, including original art and signed editions of the graphic novel. Did you plan on checking out and backing God's Dog? Sounds interesting enough. All right, so we're down to the last two stories here. Let's see where we're at. Well, at least I know it keeps going back up to 3, so that's not too bad in terms of current viewers. But I think we have more like 4. So, anyways, had a good conversation going on so far. I hope everybody's enjoying the content. We're at an hour 10, so we should actually, with any luck, we should actually get done by an hour. We should get done the main articles by, probably within the next 10 minutes or so, and then see where we go from there. All right, so here's the next article we're going to look at here. Nine Image Comics employees form union, demand the ability to cancel titles based on their quote unquote moral judgments. Article by John F. Trent, published earlier today. We kind of saw this. We kind of see this coming too. 9 Image Comics employees announced they have formed a union and are demanding improvements to their working conditions, but also the ability to cancel publications that do not align with their quote unquote moral values. Yeah, if I was the owner of Image, they tried pulling that, I'd just fire them. I'd say, no, you guys can go work elsewhere. You're not gonna pull that garbage here. The union, called Comic Book Workers United and represented by the Communications Workers of America, announced their establishment on their website and on Twitter. They wrote, quote, "We, the workers of Image Comics, have formed a union. For years, comics publishing workers have watched our professional efforts support creators and delight readers." Unquote. Quote, "Sadly, we have also watched the same labor be taken for granted at best and exploited at worst. Keeping our heads above water was the new normal before the pandemic, and since its onset, we have been expected to take on even larger workloads with fewer resources. Our workforce and the comic book and publishing industry as a whole is overtaxed and undervalued." Unquote. They continued. Well, maybe if you weren't pushing woke BS, you wouldn't be having that problem. You're gonna now cry about it? Yeah, right. Yet there are a lot of independent comic book creators who are doing just fine. Quote, "This is detrimental not only to general staff, but also to the creators we are paid to serve, and the audiences they in turn work to entertain. Our labor is integral to the comic book industry. It requires specialized skills, dedication, and makes quality publishing possible." Unquote, the union claimed. They went on, quote, "We love what we do, but loving what you do doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't ask for improvements to your working conditions. It is with this in mind, and with great hope for the future of Image Comics and the comic book industry itself, that we announce our intent to form a union and request voluntary recognition." Unquote. Comic pros unionizing. That's interesting. Or trying to unionize. He then stated this should not be radical or revolutionary, as is in fact a natural development for a company that started the way Image Comics did. Quote, "In the early stages of organizing, we looked to Image's founders for inspiration. Their dreams of self determination and more equitable treatment in the industry they loved and helped make successful are also our dreams," unquote, the union asserted. Quote, "We are honored to grow their legacy by taking the step to give all comic book industry professionals, regardless of title, the same rights, guarantees, security, and protections which the founders sought when they broke away from the big two to start their own company." Quote, "In fact, several months into our organizing efforts, Jim Valentino made a comment on social media celebrating union accomplishments. That was the moment we knew this could work." Unquote. Quote, "Despite years of union busting and anti organization sentiments in the American workforce, we know that Image has at its heart a desire to be first when it comes to doing the right thing for comics workers. That's why we know we will win, because our success is the company's success. Our success is the creator's success. Our success is the reader's success, unquote, the union concluded. I kind of went the wrong way anyways on that, but let's see. I'm sure the people that run things in comics support unions in every aspect of society except their own employees. Well, isn't that yeah, but let me ask you something. Isn't that kind of the same thing in any entertainment field? I mean, from what I understand, Michael Moore, the director, is notorious for this. He talks a big game about supporting unions and supporting workers' rights, but then totally screws them over on his own productions. It's just another sign of just hypocrisy right there in part. But the part that really grabbed my attention is that they basically want creative control as well. Basically have they want to say that they want to have the power to cancel any title that they find is bad in their own quote unquote moral judgment. Hashtag hypocrisy. Yeah, Intense Webs. I would say that sums it up. That sums it up in one word. One hashtag. All right. So the announcement was signed by Ryan Brewer, Leanna Conter, Marla Isaac, Drew Fitzgerald, Melissa Gifford, Chloe Ramos, Trisha Ramos, John Skloffman, and Erica Schnatz. I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard of any of these people. Have you guys? Along with their announcement, they also revealed 9 goals they hope to accomplish. First, they want, quote, to foster more competitive industry as they want to foster a more competitive industry as a whole through salary and workload transparency for all existing and proposed job titles. Employees industry wide should know what they and their peers are working for and what they can expect from future employment, unquote. Let's see. Second, they want to, quote, improve staff morale through annual staff and management reviews to assess performance, workload, and whether there is a clear need to expand a department, craft a new role, or increase compensation for employees who have taken on a larger quantity or more complex suite of tasks. All right. Set, I think it should be set, not suite. Um, unquote. Thirdly, they want, quote, the creation of a more transparent company culture through monthly all hands meetings so all staff can better understand both the current and future priorities, responsibilities, and workloads of other departments, unquote. Let me see if you guys are saying anything on any of this stuff thus far. Hang on. I've got to take a schnatz. Be right back. Oh boy. Ay, 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 oh, sole mio. Oh boy. Uh, Fourth, they want to, quote, increase knowledge retention through the implementation of detailed record keeping, procedure, documentation for all tasks deemed essential to any given role. These documents are to include detailed and explicit descriptions and instructions for all expected job duties, unquote. Next, they state they want to, quote, improve career mobility for all staff through stricter adherence to the company's stated intent to offer open positions up to qualified existing employees prior to opening them up to the public, unquote. Now that kind of sounds fair, yeah. Six, they say they want, quote, the continuation of remote work for any employees who request it and the creation of a detailed policy outlining how the company provides reasonable accommodations and supplies for remote employees. The pandemic has removed the necessity for the company to pay for a central office space, utilities, etc., with employees in some cases now shouldering 100% of costs that should be shared by the employer, costs such as internet, power, furnishings, and other office supplies, computer hardware, and related maintenance costs to work from their own personal devices. The company must outline an equitable arrangement for sharing a reasonable percentage of those costs. Seventh, they appear to want the increase to increase the size of their union by demanding more staff be hired at Image Comics. Quote, better overall product through the immediate addition of staff, particularly in production and marketing departments. Our creators, retailers, and readers can expect white glove attention for all books we publish. Books will which will go to press with fewer errors, fewer delays, and more robust marketing presence due to a more strategic approach to staffing in reasonable proportion to the actual quantity of output we generate. Eighth, they want, quote, a long term actionable plan to address the overall lack of diversity. Ah, ha, 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 yeah. Overall lack of diversity in both general staff and management. Authors, artists, and readers who bring comics to life have never been homogenous, and the stories we publish can only be improved by staffing our organization in a way that more accurately reflects the demographics of our creators, our readership, and the nation as a whole, unquote. Finally, they want, quote, renewed commitment to company values through the addition of a collective voting option to immediately cancel publication of any title whose creator or creators have been found to have engaged in abuse, sexual assault, racism, and xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia, anti Semitism, Islamophobia, ableism, etc., until such time as said creators have engaged in meaningful reparations toward affected persons. In other words, what that one says, I had a feeling that was going to show up in here at some point. What that's basically saying is they basically want more freedom to do to more creators what Marvel did to Joe Bennett right there. That one right there, I had a feeling that was going to be in here. That paragraph, that last paragraph I just read. I had a feeling that was going to be in there because they want more freedom to do what they did to the likes of Joe Bennett at Marvel. They want to do that. This union wants to do that with and it's kind of funny because what they're doing here, I think, kind of ties into one of the articles we read earlier too. I think what we just read here, what we've been reading here, ties into that Charles Schultz article that we read earlier. So, what do you make of this new union and their goals? Do you think they will be? I think that this is a very misguided union. Myself, if I were the head of Bounty, hey, you don't want to work. You don't want to work with us with the way we do things. Fine, bye. You're gone. Many a creator says as an independent creator. So you can go out and try to find success as an independent. You don't want to work for us under our rules. Bye. You're fired. Won't use you anymore. Let's see. Laugh out loud. I broke Mike. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Robust and overused these days. Well, that's pretty much everyone. It's time for them to go out of business. Yeah. And Image is kind of one of those second tier. Like Image is among those comics that's like right after DC and Marvel in terms of prominence. Like they're in that second tier of comics like Archie and Dark Horse and IDW. You know, whoever wrote that needs to get cancer. Well, what do you mean by that, Goat? Are you talking about who wrote? Are you talking about who wrote the article, or who wrote the demands of the union? What exactly? What writer there are you saying deserves cancer or needs to get cancer? Let's see. When it comes to hatred, these people have no self-awareness. Preach it. Their hate they spew doesn't count. Hey, here we found out that in 5th grade, you said a girl had cooties, you're fired. Lefty thugs, they don't think lucidly. It's that way now for any company over 50 employees. Government regs and company peer pressure. The demands of the union and the writer of the article are the demands of the union, not the writer of the article. My bad. Yeah, because John Trent there he's a good writer. We read a lot of his articles. Okay, but thank you for clarifying that. Goat. I think he's more of the mindset. Just based on what I've seen and what he's wrote of these articles that we've read and we reviewed. Um, I think he's on, I guess, he's kind of in that same thought process that like we're all in, that many of us in our community and our expanded community are in. So yeah, the demands of the union. Yeah, I mean, and I even told you back. I even mentioned this. That last demand they had, I knew that was coming. I had a feeling based on the headline of the article, I saw that demand coming from like a mile away. Even with my 2060 vision. Yeah, he seems to point out the BS. Yes, he does. I I think a lot of the writers at Bounding into well, as I understand it too, the person who owns Bounding into Comics, the person who actually owns it, is Richard C. Meyer, the guy who was involved in that Meyer Wade case. So, take that for what it's worth. So, obviously, I think these are people who we're probably more in agreement with to begin with. So, yeah, and I do appreciate any your boy Zach. Yeah. So, and I do appreciate any and all likes, guys. Of course, does help with we're at hour 33, so we do have one more article to get through, and I think we'll be able to get through it. And we, once again, are going to point out some hypocrisy here. Here comes another tale of open hypocrisy here. Yes, they are good people. Marvel hypocritically plays up racist stereotypes, announces new Asian Iron Fist to replace Danny Rand. Article by Spencer Bacouli, published earlier today. To the surprise of absolutely no one who has been paying attention to the current state of entertainment these last few years, Marvel has hilariously chosen to reinforce racist stereotypes under the guise of quote unquote, or in smaller quotes, social justice by announcing that longtime champion of Kunlun, Danny Rand, will soon be replaced by a new Asian hero as 616's resident Iron Fist. Do 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 do. Iron Fist of Living Women, Volume 1, Number 3. Rage Part 3. Variant cover by Jerome Opeña. Set to make his debut in February 2022 in the pages of an eponymously named 5-issue miniseries held by Dr. Afra writer Alyssa Wong and first-time Marvel artist Michael YG, Marvel's newest Iron Fist will reportedly undertake a journey that quote will see the legendary mantle of Iron Fist passed on to a new hero in a revolutionary transformation of one of Marvel's most fascinating mystical mythology, unquote. Quote, it's an incredible honor to introduce a new Iron Fist to the Marvel Universe, unquote, Wong told Marvel. Quote, I'm excited to delve into the comics' rich mythos and build on it. What does it mean for someone to take up the mantle of Iron Fist right now, today? As a newcomer, how does one interact with legacy, and how does one honor it while forging a new path? Unquote. She further added, quote, I'm so stoked to work with artist Michael YG, colorist Jay Ramos, and the rest of the incredible team of this book. And writing this character who views things through fresh eyes feels very special to me. Unquote. This, of course, will be the last main story of the night, so I think we've made good time here. As for YG, like most fledgling artists, he exclaimed, quote, working for Marvel is a dream come true. Yet it was beyond any dream to be trusted to carry the legacy of Iron Fist. Unquote. Quote, it is such an exciting new direction, unquote, said the artist. Quote, I can't wait for you to read all about it because I'm giving nothing less than my best efforts, unquote. Though Marvel bafflingly did not make mention of it in their press release, Wong later noted on Twitter that the new Iron Fist would, unsurprisingly, be an Asian individual. Quote, also, on a personal level, it means a lot to me to write an Asian Iron Fist, unquote, said Wong. Quote, it's a huge honor. Curiously, though, Marvel already set up a young Asian girl, Pei, as the next Iron Fist. She appears to have been inexplicably skipped over by the monks of Kunlun in favor of a newer and much older male successor. So I guess what they're saying here is now, yeah, they're saying that while on the one hand, yeah, we're putting in an Asian character, but we're also replacing it with a male instead of a female. Or replacing it with a man instead of a woman. That's basically what it sounds like they're getting at here. So it's sexism that they're targeting here. See, source Iron Fist, The Living Weapon, Volume 1, Number 11, Redemption Part 5, Marvel Comics, Words and Art by Kare Andrews. Given this, it seems the decision by Marvel to race swap their most arguably well known martial artists and ignore their own continuity undoubtedly stems from the 2016 critical race theory based backlash leveled against the casting of Finn Jones as a comic accurate Iron Fist in the Netflix series of the same name. To this day, critics of Jones' casting have argued that due to the historical roots of martial arts, a mystical kung fu practitioner being portrayed as anything other than Asian is cultural appropriation, ironically reinforcing an even more offensive racial stereotype themselves. Ah, that's what it is. Basically, in the name of social justice, because the character is not portrayed by an Asian, they are therefore reinforcing the said racial stereotype that they're trying to preach against by casting an Asian character. Try wrapping your head around that logic. Try wrapping your head around that logic. Oh, to do that, that's pretty much that's if anything, that's more racist than what they're accusing other people of doing. In fact, when asked about the accusations of quote unquote whitewashing, or smaller quotes rather, regarding the character's overall creation, Iron Fist creator Roy Thomas asserted, quote, I just think that some people have too much time on their hands, I guess. Yeah, they do, Roy. They do. You're right there, buddy. They do. They do. Quote, they have infinite capacity for righteous indignation, unquote, he told Inverse in 2017. Quote, by and large, that tends to be misplaced quite often because if you're becoming all upset over things that are just stories, and if you don't like it, instead of trying to change somebody else's story, go out and make up your own characters and do a good job of it. That's just fine, but why waste time trying to run down other people's characters simply because they weren't created with your standards in mind? Unquote. That's the ultimate question that SJWs can't answer. That right there is the ultimate question that SJWs cannot answer. Right there is that they have all this time to run down other people. Why not just go and create your own world then? Go create your own comics. You don't like the comics that are being published? Go out and create your own. Source Marvel Premiere Volume 1, Number 15, The Fury of the Iron Fist, 1974. Marvel Comics, cover art by Gil Kane, Dick Giordano, Tony Mortellaro, and Gaspar Saladino. He further reasoned, quote, now if something is really racist or degrading to a sex or race, an ethnic group, or something like that, that's something else. Iron Fist isn't that, and never has been. It's all about a fictitious race, a fictitious place like Shangri-La, and one person who happens to be its emissary. There's no reason why he can't be Caucasian, unquote. While Thomas did later note that, quote, on the other hand, if they had decided to make Iron Fist an Asian, that would have been fine with me too. I wouldn't have cared, unquote. He included his discussion of the Iron Fist ethnicity by continuing to push the creation of new characters as the more, quote unquote, creative alternative to race swapping. Uh huh. Quote, just make up a new character, unquote, said Thomas. Quote, don't worry about trashing another one. Just make up a new one. There's always room for one, and it's always better to be creative than to be a critic. I've been both. It's better to be creative, unquote. Which you have to applaud him for that. That is totally 100% right. And there's only two real reasons why they prefer race swapping. One, they're lazy. And two, it makes more of an impact to use an already established character to push your agenda. Okay? That's kind of why they turned like Superman and Robin and Alan Scott and Green Lantern. That's why they made them like gay or bisexual or whatever. Okay? Use these well-established characters to push an agenda. It's like that idea of name recognition. You know, oh, Superman's gay now, or Superman's bisexual. He represents us now. You know, no, he doesn't represent true justice the American way anymore. He represents us SJWs. He validates us. And it's like, okay, that's not what he does. That's I mean, I almost have to argue that in some respects, I think Siegel and Schuster might be turning over in their graves right now, saying what they were doing to his character. Never met a woman I would call Iron Fist, but I've met a few I would call Leadfoot. Ah, yeah. Uh, yeah, just press down on that gas, honey. Uh, he concluded, quote, "There's nothing wrong with being a critic, but after a while, you're basically talking about other people's work. That's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a perfectly respectable thing. But I think you should try to put yourself in their shoes instead of constantly complaining because they didn't do exactly what you think they should have done. Rather than having that, you should go out and do it yourself." Unquote. Iron Fist, Volume 1, Number 6, Death Mato, 1976. Cover by Gil Kane, Frank Giacoia, and Danny Crespi. Of course, for Marvel, it seems easier for them to alienate their established fans in favor of stereotyping minorities and shoving them into hand-me-down identities than to put even an ounce of creativity into producing original characters for any given demographic to proudly call their own. That's a good way of saying it, Spencer. Spencer's the guy who wrote this article. That paragraph right there is a gem of a way of saying it. What do you make of Marvel's new Asian Iron Fist? Let us know your thoughts on social media in the comments down below. Yeah, I mean, these guys do write some pretty good articles. I'll give you that much. All right then. Let's see. And of course, yeah. Oh, as Scott Steiner would put it, holla if you hear me. Yeah, so that's it for the main articles then. And of course, we're not as pressed for time because, as I said, we started an hour earlier. So how have you? There's Leto. Oh hey, crap! I almost forgot. Yeah, we're on an hour earlier now, Leto. We're on an hour earlier now. We just finished the main articles. We'll probably be wrapping up pretty soon here because we're already at hour 50 here. But you can always go back and watch them. We had some pretty good articles tonight. Yeah, I told you to be watching for the notifications because I would be doing So, anyways, I hope everybody did like the articles tonight. They were actually quite enlightening, I think. All right, and so let's see. We're cutting into someone's nap time here. Well, look at this way, guys. You got a little longer. Well, I don't even know if Nick will be streaming that because he actually streamed earlier today because he was covering the Kyle Rittenhouse case. This this earlier today. So I don't know if he'll be. I don't know if he'll be streaming or not. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to catch the Wednesday through Friday shows because of this new schedule, such that my nap time before I go to work. Yeah, I understand. I understand. I just hope you can make it Monday and Tuesday, man. Just got to remember though that we're on an hour earlier now. I should since I'm off. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we are coming up on the 2 hour mark, so I think it's a good time to start wrapping up here a little bit. Are you guys ready for this day in each history? I have to remember. I will now. And I do thank you guys for the likes and shares. That does help with the algorithm, getting more people in here. I am. Okay. All right. Everybody else ready for this day in each history? All right. Well, without any further ado, today being Monday, November the 1st, um, 2021, let's take a look back at this day in each history. Let's do it. All right. And our first stop, we're going to head back actually 75 years ago today. This first piece of history is going to be real interesting. I don't know. Some of you may have even seen this in school. Okay. The story of menstruation on this date in 1946. Walt Disney Productions premiered a 10-minute animated film called The Story of Menstruation. Okay. This was a 10-minute American animated film produced by Walt Disney Productions. It was commissioned by the International Cello Cotton Company, now Kimberly Clark, and was shown in a non-theatrical release to approximately 105 million American students in health education classes. All right. So basically, I think this was an educational film that was produced by Walt. So on this date, 75 years ago today, the educational animated film, The Story of Menstruation, premiered on this date 75 years ago. Ew, gross. Yeah, some of you might have seen it in your health classes. So, anyways, moving on to the next piece of niche history. As we will head back to 40 years ago today, as on this date back in 1981. On this date, 40 years ago today, on this date, 40 years ago today, Dory Funk Jr. regains the NWA International title from Bruiser Brody in Tokyo. So on this date in 1981, 40 years ago today, Dory Funk Jr. regains the NWA International title from Bruiser Brody in Tokyo, the late Bruiser Brody. So this is during, of course, an All Japan show. that this was happening at. Nope. All right, moving on to the next piece of niche history. Oh. The Funks were amazing. Yes, they were. They were particularly successful. Woody, they were particularly successful throughout the late 70s and into the early 80s over in Japan for all Japan. In fact, they when they were still running their own promotion, the Western States territory for the NWA, they actually had a working agreement with Baba's All Japan Wrestling. A lot of his guys would actually go over and wrestle some cards for the Funks, and the Funks would go over there, send some of their players as well, some of their guys. I still use Terry Funk's favorite insult: "You egg sucking dog." Yeah, he was known for that one. All right. So, anyways, um, because on a farm, you have to put down a dog that did that. Oh, who sucked an egg? Hmm. Is that where the foaming of the mouth comes in, or something like that? Anyways, moving on to the next piece of niche history. Let's see. Yeah, that would be the next one. On this date, 30 years ago today, in 1991, the first issue of the comic adaptation of Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire went on sale on newsstands on this date back 30 years ago today. 30 years ago today, the comic adaptation from Innovation Comics of Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, the first issue, went on sale on this date in 1991. It was $2.50, 32 pages. So, as I understand it, that was a pretty well-known book back then. And comics, there were periods of time where comics, yeah, hey there were times there where comics did where many of the comics did adapt books and stuff like that. And that's a pretty well-known thing they did their history. So, anyways, and we're coming to our last piece of niche history here. As on this date, 5 years ago today, on this, I'm sorry, not 15 years ago, on this date, 15 years ago today, back in 2006, Studio Fantasia's Strain Strategic Armored Infantry premiered on the Wow Wow network in Japan. So on this date, 15 years ago today, Strain, the Strategic Armored Infantry anime from Studio Fantasia, premiered on the Wow Wow network on this date 15 years ago today. So there you go. That's all we got for the history tonight. Thank you guys for being here. All right, so everybody, just another reminder here. The Mikestand will now, of course, be starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern. So we're going to be starting an hour earlier. I hope to see everybody out here again tomorrow. Don't forget, this Friday, of course, is our next episode of the Historical Comic Retrospect, where Backo and I will be continuing our look into comics that went on sale from July of 1938, where we'll be looking at comics that went on sale from Dell, David McKay, and United Feature Syndicate. Let's see. Also, don't forget, as I mentioned on Friday, As of right now, there's no show scheduled for Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving Friday, Christmas Eve, or New Year's Eve. It's the Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve both fall on Fridays. However, if you guys want, you guys and let me know obviously before then. If you guys want, we can do a open mic night on New Year's Eve and celebrate the new year together if you guys want to do that. So get back to me on that. And I hope everybody enjoyed the content tonight. And I hope everybody will be back here tomorrow night. Again, a reminder, we start at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. So I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow night. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye!